Hello, my name is Freddie and welcome to my channel. And this time, this video is going to be quite simple. I think it's going to be a fun video, for me at least. It's going to be a tag video, and the theme for this tag is DNF, not finishing a book. And I was tagged by Rainer from Rainierbooks, so I'm actually quite excited for this tag video because I actually think that the theme is really interesting. It kind of relates to what I've been experiencing lately. Basically, DNF, or dropping a book. It was not actually something that I would practice last year. But I think this year I kind of discovered the power that you have when you decide to do that to yourself. It felt so liberating. I felt so free, and I thought that it's just really amazing that I have that power to decide my own destiny as far as my reading goes. So let's get to the question. Really interesting questions. Do I DNF? Of course. I've only started DNF books recently. And so next one is, does it count as a book that I've read in a month if I DNF it? And of course it does not. That because I only count books that I have experienced from beginning to the end as a book that I've read. And if I DNF a book, then I do not get to experience whatever that is happening beyond the point that I stop reading the book. And so I wouldn't count that book as a read book, which is kind of a shame because I do think that every book has a story to tell. It's just that I guess some books, the stories aren't just good enough, and I have like tons of other books just vying for my attention, and I just can't resist the temptation of getting into other books. Next question is there any difference between DNF versus putting a book down for a while? And I would say yes, because this is also something that I do. Basically, if I DNF a book, it's when the book is just not something that I want to read anymore. And if I were to put it down, because sometimes I also know that a book may not work because of other factors. Maybe at the time my head was just not in the right place. Maybe I just did not have the time to read a long book, or maybe I was just busy, and so I would put it down for a while, and I would pick it up when a better time comes. In fact, that has been something that I actually did recently. I kind of did that with A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, and I thought that book was great. The idea was great. I kind of liked it, but something about the structure of that book, the way that the chapters were arranged, it did not really jive well with my current state of mind, so to speak. And so I kind of decided to drop that book first, and probably I'll pick it up when I feel like I'm up to it. And so next question is, which popular book have I DNF'd? So I'm just going to focus on DNF and not books that I'm putting down for a while. And the most recent one, my most recent DNF, is actually a book that won the Booker Prize. It was The Gathering by Anne Wright. And I guess that book was kind of popular, but I just couldn't enjoy it. It was just so boring, and I just couldn't get the story that it was trying to tell me. And I think there is a glimmer of a story there, but I just couldn't care about that story. And the whole vibe of apathy is just permeates the whole book. It was really unbearable. So I stopped reading that one. And this question is kind of funny. Which book I wish I had DNF? And I actually had to think for a long time about this, because if I don't like a book, then there's a big chance that I would actually um, forget about the book. I'm not sure. Sometimes my head has a way of doing things, but I actually thought of something, and it was a book that I read. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and it was the Story of O by Pauline Reage, and I actually was kind of excited to get into this book because it was an erotica, and I was kind of excited to dip my toes into erotica and see if I would be excited with this book, if this book would kind of hook me in after my kind of bad experience with Delta of Venus by Anais Nin. And you know and I guess this book was kind of better than that, but it was only marginally better, because the only thing that I could remember about my experience reading this book was how long I had to wait for my fried rice to come while I was ordering my fried rice at a diner. Because while I was waiting for my fried rice, I was actually reading, or I was trying to read Story of O. And I guess, I just didn't feel enough emotional impact from the Story of O, and instead I actually experienced more emotional impact from my long wait of my dinner. So I guess that kind of speaks volumes about how Story of O kind of affected me. And I guess I kind of wish that I had stopped reading that, just dropped it first. I think there is a possibility that I might find something like some kind of spark in that book. But I guess at the time, I just started my first job, and I was kind of stressed out, and I guess maybe that's why I couldn't really enjoy this book. So I'd say this book actually kind of had potential, but it would have been better if I just decided to drop it first, and then pick it back up again at a later time. But I didn't. And so, have I reattempted books that I DNF'd? And yeah, of course, I'm always optimistic about the books, especially the ones that I did not finish, because I kind of have this idea that if I stop reading a book, maybe it was my own fault, or maybe it was something that relates to me instead of the book being bad. So I always want to give a book a second try, and so I did that with Michelle Houellebecq's The Possibility of an Island. And to be fair, The Possibility of an Island was actually my second Houellebecq book. And mind you, the first Houellebecq book that I read wasn't exactly a finished read. It was also a DNF. It was atomized. And so yeah, technically when I reattempted The Possibility of an Island, it was kind of like me trying and trying again to read Houellebecq, but it just failed. It that whole experience of trying to get into Houellebecq's writing was a big failure. And I still remember when I was reading The Possibility of an Island for the second time. I was commuting to my workplace. At the time I was doing my internship, and I was on a train, and I thought that it felt kind of nice to be reading on the train, you know, how it felt like really romantic and all that. But it just had that feeling for a short time, you know, for only a few chapters, and after that the book the book just became unbearably boring. Anyway, so what do I do with the books that I have DNF'd? And the answer is I keep them all. I do not have this uh, practice of giving my book away because I am pretty possessive of my own books, even when they are books that I dislike. Because, like I said earlier, I kind of have this optimism with the books that I actually acquired, and I feel like, you know, there are always something inside a book. It has always been kind of like my philosophy with books. There's always something with a book that you might discover, maybe not now, maybe later. So I keep all of my books, and I don't really sell books. I kind of did that back then when I was at college, which was an action that I dearly regret right now. So I don't really want to think about it. It was horrible. so so yeah, I keep all of my books. And so do I choose more or less risky books given my own tendency towards, you know, DNFing a book? And I think this does not really have anything to do with my my most recent, like my recently, you know, newfound tendency of, you know, to DNF. But my choice has always been very you know, not risky. I'm not a risky person at all when it comes to acquiring books. I am very much a backlist person. I am, you know, if I ever feel like super adventurous or something, I would go for new releases because I think it has something to do with my own, you know, reading speed, reading stamina, and so I need to make sure that the books that I purchase are books that, you know, at least have some sort of value that persists over time. You know, books that, you know, people still talk about after a period of time, after a few years, because chances are, if the books are still being reprinted years and years after its first publication, then, you know, there's a possibility that that book is a good one, and so I would tend to go towards that kind of books. And the last point in this tag is actually to tag 5 other booktubers. So I think I'm just gonna tag Edward from Gagging for Lit, Jyotsna, Shannon from That's So Po, Sultan, Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventure. And that's all for now for this video, and I'll see you again in another one. So until then, take care and bye bye.